You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There is a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution, if you want to, at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for the week of July 21st, 2023. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where the only Target letters we ever get are offers for 15% off toilet paper and back-to-school supplies. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, we get Target letters every week, and they're I like them. They're very inviting. There's lots of savings. We have young people in the house.
Savings on summer patio furniture. And
yeah. The young
like
people
that.
who occasionally live in this house are delighted to get them. They go rushing off to go to Target and get some stuff.
Yeah.
So
and get their Target letter. Yeah, but that's not the Target letter.
I don't.
Apparently, Donald Trump received his Target letter on Sunday night, and he said, "Never before in the history have they ever sent a letter on Sunday night."
Right.
He says to Hannity.
Is the Sabbath not sacred? Says the adulterous. The adulterous, felonious, corrupt asshole. Yeah.
I'm so tired of him. I'm just so tired of him.
Me too. We all are. And that doesn't matter because he's going to be with us he's probably going to be the Republican nominee for president of the United States.
Well, and this brings up a whole story, a whole podcast, if you will.
Really?
Because, well, to me, what happened today, and we are recording this on Thursday, July 20th.
Yes.
Today is the day when Jack Smith's D.C. grand jury is allegedly and purportedly meeting.
Right.
To charge Donald Trump in relation to the 2020 election and his activities regarding overturning the 2020 election. And look, there are many, many legal analysts that you can go to who are not, who are, actual lawyers or actual prosecutors to explain to you the ins and outs of Jack Smith's decisions on what to charge Donald Trump with.
We were just both married to lawyers. That doesn't really count.
That's true. That's true. ACLU president. I was married to state ACLU president in Alabama. Yeah. But not anymore. And so we're not legal analysts. And really the Jack Smith DC grand jury indictments are not out. So we really don't know. All we know about the Target letter is what Donald Trump has told us and what has been leaked from, Donald Trump's other names, the other names he uses to leak things.
John Barron. Yep.
John Barron. But what happened today to me was sort of a glowing reminder of, and you have used this word many times this week, the trench warfare.
Yes.
That we are in. And so here is Jack Smith's D.C. grand jury is allegedly, and we assume, meeting today. That is happening at some point. While that is going on, Fox News content creator Elise Stefanik, who also purportedly, and I hate to keep using that word, but she purportedly represents voters.
Yes. In
New York State.
Yes, somewhere in New York, this is who they elected.
They elected to represent them in the Congress.
And remember, this is no fair remembering stuff territory, I realize. But she was number 2 behind someone named Liz Cheney, I think.
Yeah.
In the Republican leadership structure before the bad thing happened. And then Elise Stefanik decided, I want to live in Donald Trump's colon for the rest of my life.
Right.
And that's where she is
because
crawled in.
I believe in my heart of hearts that is the pathway to power within the Republican Party.
That's all.
So I'm not going to be a moderate Republican anymore. I'm going to be a MAGA Republican.
Right. Super MAGA. Super duper.
Super MAGA.
Yep.
So she used her the House committee on which she sat, and I think it was a joint committee that met today, to ask Robert Kennedy Jr., RFK Jr., who was testifying. He had Dennis Kucinich sitting behind him. This was just a campaign appearance as far as I was concerned.
Right.
But Elise Stefanik asked Robert Kennedy about Hunter Biden's laptop. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said, I don't know much about it. I understand that the story has been censored somewhat,
Yeah.
he says on television, while a congresswoman asks him about it.
Yes. Because by censored, I mean, it's not playing 24/7 on Fox.
Yeah, I guess not.
There are periods during which they're selling you dick pills and horrible pillows and things like that. So, but it's been terribly, terribly censored. He has no voice.
And then Elise Stefanik made the claim that if voters knew about Hunter Biden's laptop, 61% of Democrats would change their vote.
Right.
I'm very surprised that she went with 61 instead of 57.
Yeah, 57, exactly.
Because 57 is an easier number to remember.
It is. All you Manchurian candidate
all you Manchurian candidate fans should know that 57 is right up there with 42 as an important number in American cinema.
And I believe PolitiFact took about 40 seconds to say
42
no.
seconds. 42.
No. 42 seconds. Say no, that never happened. No, that is just straight up bullshit. It wasn't even like partially true. It was like, no, straight bullshit. But and this is the sad part. It won't matter. It doesn't matter.
Nope.
It doesn't matter at all. She just says lying liar stuff, and they all say lying liar stuff, and their base goes arr, 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 and they vote for them, and they vote for them again and again and again. Their base are unsalvageable garbage people who soak this stuff up, and that's why she does it, because she knows it works. And somewhere out there tonight over dinner, crazy Uncle Liberty is going to say, well, 61% of Democrats, if they had just known about Hunter Biden's laptop,
but all the censorship
would have voted
coming
for Donald
from
Trump.
the White House,
right? The deep state censorship, and and that's when you disown that relative. You never speak to them again, and you don't invite them to Thanksgiving, and you just say, you know what? We're related, and I'll come to your funeral. I'll be sad, and
I'll come to your funeral. That's the connection we have as a family.
It'll be sad, and we're hoping we're hoping our children will remember that time you got them a nice toy for Christmas, rather than the time you turned into a lunatic racist traitor
trying to take away their health insurance. Right.
Grandpa.
Grandpa.
But yeah, you know what? I would not vote for Hunter Biden's laptop either.
No.
I did not realize Hunter Biden's laptop was on the ballot, but President Hunter Biden, it lost my vote, honestly. Especially those dick pics of his that lady was flashing around. I just thought, well, that could have been better lit and needed a much more sort of compelling story behind it to make it pornography that was acceptable in my household. So, way to go, Elise Stefanik. But you can't beclown yourself. And this is what my wife and I mean by trench warfare.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to change. Yeah. The alignment among the three groups of people who are out there right now, the people who listen to Elise Stefanik and go, arr, 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 and the people who know she's lying, and a lot of them are on Twitter, spending a lot of their time wagging their finger going, Elise Stefanik, you're lying. Like that'll change anything.
Yeah.
And then all the mopes out there who I just wish both sides would stop fighting. I just wish everyone would be quiet. Both sides are so angry. Why must everyone be so angry all the time? And the great wad of American people who have no idea any of this is going on.
Yeah.
None of those sides are going to change much. They're all kind of dug in because they have to be. The people who are Elise Stefanik stans, Trump fans, can't change.
Yeah.
They can't back off of this. They have gone into the bunker with the Fuhrer, and they ain't coming back out. And those of us who have saw this coming for 30 years are not going to change our mind. And the people who are worship at the altar of both sides do it can't change their mind either. So this is
I want to push back on one thing you said, which is about the people who don't know any of this is happening.
Right. Who avoid knowing.
Who actively avoid knowing. Right. Okay.
Right.
Well, there's a difference between people who actively avoid politics because they're terrified of being wrong or hurting someone's feelings or, getting fired. I mean, there are all kinds of reasons to avoid politics. And if I was working in an office in Springfield, Illinois, I would avoid politics.
And that's why I'm not working in an office in
That's
Springfield,
why Driftglass is not working in an office.
I'm currently unemployable in the city where I live because this is a Republican town and I'm not. So, that's the way that goes.
Well, I might be looking for work later on this month. So we're going to see how that goes. But the point is that there are people who have jobs and kids and families and things to do
Mhm.
and simply don't have time to keep up with politics to the granular extent that we do. And we had some feedback last week from a listener who said that they would like us to do a show
Mhm.
in which we go through some of the, and I don't want to say shortcuts, that's not exactly right, but you and I sort of speak to one another often as two people who are bathing in this all day, every day, because we are.
Sure.
And so, talking about Jennifer Rubin the way we did last week,
Right.
certain of our listeners had to go and say, wait a minute, who is that?
Sure.
And so I think sometimes we do shortcuts in our conversation that, and everyone who's listening to us has access to the internet to go and search for who we're talking about. I'm not trying to baby anyone.
Right.
But I think you and I speak at a pace sometimes that is assuming a tremendous amount of, in over your head every day, absorbed in this. And that came to my attention this week when Middle Child asked me about the documents.
Right.
And said they weren't really in his bathroom, were they? Because that sounds like something Driftglass would make up as a joke.
Right. And then you go
So
to the
I brought
computer.
up the pictures and I said, this is not a Photoshop. This is a shower at Mar-a-Lago. That is the chandelier in the bathroom. That is the toilet.
And those are
you
all
can
the
see
documents.
there are boxes behind the shower curtain as well as in front of the shower curtain.
And
she was appalled.
Yeah. Now,
but having heard about it, to the extent that a college student going to be a junior, lots of friends, lots of activity, he is aware of the news, right? But said, no, that really can't be true that there were classified documents in a bathroom. Come on.
in a potty.
Yeah.
That's
in a
right.
potty. That's not. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's true.
Well,
and then one more thing. The topic of Hunter Biden came up on Twitter, and I try not to jump into these, into the cesspool. But in defending all of this and saying, look, he paid his taxes and he went to the FBI. He cooperated with the investigation. And I remember an interview or a news story or something where it was made clear that Hunter Biden had actually confirmed the existence of certain emails on the hard drives.
Right.
And that had cooperated with investigators to say, yes, these are my emails. And no, I don't remember that being an email that I ever sent. But yes, I did send this one and this one.
Right.
Just to cooperate.
Right.
And I remember that. And I have a pretty good memory for these things. And some right wing, blue check, whatever, challenged me. And I ignored it. But then one of my followers, who I know to be a good liberal, said, I don't remember that. I don't remember that interview.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to try to search for it because I'll just Google it and find it, because I do distinctly remember some news person or some lawyer or someone saying, oh yeah, Hunter Biden went in and with the FBI confirmed that some of these emails were his.
Right.
Have you tried to Google Hunter Biden lately?
Well, it's you get a million hits. I mean,
you get a million hits, most of them from the New York Post.
Right.
With dick pics on them. I mean, this is flooding the zone.
Right. With dick pics. Yeah.
Yeah. Flooding the zone with dick pics and innuendo, and Hunter Biden's a criminal, and Joe Biden covered up for him, and Joe Biden's FBI is covering up for him, and Joe Biden's IRS is covering up. No, actually, all of this investigation took place under Trump's IRS, most of it.
Uh-huh.
But again, so I simply said that the Google zone is flooded. And that's part of the technique to make sure that anyone actually trying to look for, I'm not fully aware of what that whole Hunter Biden thing is about. What is it about?
Right.
I'll just go and search for it. It's not like I'll just go search for classified documents, bathroom Mar-a-Lago, and actually find photographs of what happened. No, I'm going to find Hunter Biden dick pics and a whole bunch of bullshit.
Right. That's right. That's the internet. Welcome to the internet. Now, I'm going to push back gently on your pushback.
Mm-hmm.
We talked, you and I, briefly today, because this is what we do. This is our sexy talk, by the way.
Yeah, we don't watch porn. We just talk politics with one another, and it gets us all juicy.
I said, hey, baby, I'm going to talk to you about Star Trek, the original series.
Oh, my God.
And we're going to talk about
Waka Jawaka.
Mirror, Mirror. We're going to talk about Spock in a goatee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which we've been talking about for about 3 weeks now.
Yeah, Spock and a goatee. Now, and the idea that it is possible for civilized people to pretend to be barbarians.
Yes,
But
right.
it is impossible for barbarians to pretend to be civilized.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in that sort of vein, although not directly, it is oftentimes impossible or really difficult for us smart people to imagine just how stupid can get, and
Mm-hmm.
stupid and confident. Like I'm a complete idiot. I have lots of opinions, and I know they're right, and I'm never going to change them. People who would listen to Elise Stefanik with their head nodding.
Mm-hmm.
So the level of granular detail that we have about the real world and politics, those people manage to have about bullshit going back to Vince Foster being murdered. Somehow, nothing of the real world, factual world soaks into their big dumb heads, but they can tell you that Robert Byrd was a member of the Klan when he was 17.
Right.
You know, they got a lot of fucking knowledge in those big dumb heads of theirs. It's just all bullshit, or it's all whataboutism, or it's all talking points to deflect liberal criticism.
Mm-hmm.
So that's them. But
that's Dinesh D'Souza brainwashing. Absolutely. Right. Yeah.
Right. So that's one group of people. But let's talk for a minute about the people who, you know, they're not saturated in it. They're not soaking in this. They're not like us. We're fine. Okay, great. So I'm going to address you now as one of them.
Okay.
In a loving way.
Yeah.
You're aware that Republicans tried to overthrow the government, right?
January 6th was violent. I know that, right?
Yeah. You know that was Republicans who did that, right? It was on television. You know that, right?
Both sides are kind of both sides.
No. You don't get to be the centrist person now who's deflecting.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
You're the low information person.
Low information.
The normal American.
Yeah. Okay. I saw the Trump flags. I saw the video with the Trump flags. Yes. I saw the video with Trump flags.
So you're going to vote for that guy?
Yeah, that's a good question, right?
So even the lowest of people who are cop to, I mean, people who cop to low information voting, my parents were very busy people. They both worked. My dad was a principal. My mom was a teacher. My mom was a teacher 24/7. Even they had time to absorb something about what was going on in the world around them,
right,
who the politicians were, and they could vote. So this whole excuse was like, I'm very busy. I don't have time to know how anything works, how civics works, how politics works, who's elected, who stands for what. Well, no, that's bullshit. You don't want to know. You are lazy. You're too lazy to get the basics of, like I said before, I have power tools in my garage. I read the instruction manual with every one of them because I don't want to cut my foot off.
Right.
You don't have time to understand how your country works or who's in charge of it or whether they did a good thing or a bad thing on a catastrophic level. Ask the person who doesn't know anything, who's like, I'm not into politics. Do you remember the Iraq War?
Yeah.
Do you remember it all? And if they say no, hang up the phone.
Yep.
Walk away. Because it's not a matter of I'm not interested, I don't have time, I'm busy. It's I am aggressively staying away from information because I am too fucking cowardly to pick a side.
But I think that's the brilliance of the Biden administration. Which is simple. Going to the groundbreaking at Marjorie Taylor Greene's district.
Cheerfully.
To start jobs. And the one place that these chips are being built, these chip factories and this manufacturing renaissance invested in by the United States government under Joe Biden is Arizona and Georgia.
Right.
There's a reason for that. And it's a political reason. And I don't care. Now, Donald Trump wanted to have his signature and picture on the relief checks for COVID. So, taking a little credit for your party investing in this country is quite all right.
It's perfectly, especially when it's true.
Yeah, and I remember and I know you remember too, the Obamacare votes.
Yes.
And the party in the Rose Garden in 2017.
I absolutely do.
I mean, that was the end for me. Anybody who's a Republican voted to take away my health insurance. I'm done with you.
This was clear because we're being very abbreviated now, you and I. This is not the Obamacare vote. This was the get rid of the Obamacare.
Get rid of
vote.
Obamacare.
Yeah, and they had
have nothing in its place, and leave handicapped children left, with lifetime spending limits on their insurance, lifetime caps.
Right.
Children who will never breathe on their own and in a wheelchair are going to have lifetime caps on their health care.
And Paul Ryan's solution was tort reform
Yeah.
and let insurance companies sell over state lines, but keep the market as the market is, which was insane.
Yeah.
It's completely insane.
Yeah. And there's still so much wrong with healthcare. I'm not saying everything's fixed. I'm just saying taking all of that away, taking those protections away from Americans.
And celebrating it.
And celebrating it with a beer in the Rose Garden. And I remember sitting down, and there was a relative of yours who was in town.
Yes.
Who is not a political, he's savvy and smart and educated, but not a political person in terms of his job.
Not anymore.
saying to you, so what happens next? Yeah. Do we just lose our insurance as of tomorrow? Is it just over? Or is it good for a year? Or does it end in January? Or what? And even you and I didn't know what was next.
I don't know.
We had to say, we don't know, because our insurance company's going to say, great, we don't have to sell you insurance with a subsidy anymore. Right. Fuck you.
Yep.
Nobody knew what was next. Mitch McConnell didn't know what was next.
No.
And that was, it was a political fuck you to Obama. That's all they wanted.
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, they had spent.
And our insurance hung from John McCain's thumb. And when John McCain died, they went to their media outlets and said, we're going to try again.
That's right. Well, Scott Brown.
Yeah.
In Massachusetts, who took Ted Kennedy's seat because his opponent, his Democratic opponent, was, completely incompetent.
Terrible. Incompetent.
But Scott Brown ran on, I'll be the 51st vote to get rid of Obamacare. I promise to get rid of Obamacare.
Yeah.
And they spent so much time turning that into the worst catastrophe that ever happened to America that they were sort of obliged to burn it all down when they got into power.
They voted 60 times already to do it.
So they got to fulfill that promise, because they have taught their base that Obamacare.
That's the last time you're going to do that on this show.
Okay.
Please.
How about woof, 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 woof?
There you go. All right.
That's what they told their followers was being shoved down their throat. There's an expression we heard a billion times by the Kenyan usurper to kill your lily white grandmother. So we have to get rid of it because it's the worst evil ever. Because if we don't get rid of it, we're going to be Soviet Russia. And the morons who vote Republican, who didn't spring into existence in 2016, who've been there for decades, all voted for it. So, okay. So we've had now a fairly good time playing handball with Republicans and low information voters who don't know anything, and people who swear they've never heard of the Iraq War, don't know how their country works. Fine. I would like to take a moment or two, or maybe half an hour, to talk about really basic things, because there are two terms that I toss around a lot that are different from each other but similar to each other, and those are independent and centrist.
And I want everyone to know that Driftglass has taken very careful notes about this. So
I have.
And I'm very grateful that you have. You have really thorough notes.
Well, sometimes my thoughts get away from me. Every day they get away from me. And then I sit down from the keyboard and I bring them back in line. I guarantee you, I'm going to go off into tangents. I'm going to go on little circuitous routes. There's going to be something that will remind me of something else. I had a dream last night of a cousin I used to have. But basically, I'm going to try real hard to stick to the subject, which is the differences between an independent and a centrist. Because both terms are equally meaningless, but they mean meaningless things in slightly different ways. So, a centrist. What is a centrist? A centrist doesn't believe anything. They don't believe anything at all. They exist as a theoretical midpoint between two other things. That is the definition of being in the center. You're between two things. You're between two ferns, whatever it is. Now, in my experience, and probably in yours, centrists are mostly conservatives who are freaked out by what's happening to conservatism, but are psychologically, and let's face it, financially, professionally constrained from saying, these people are fucking nuts. I'm thinking, of course, of David Brooks and people like him. They can't just come out and say the right has lost its goddamn mind, because centrists can only survive in this thick, greasy fog created by 1,000 pundits repeating the catchphrase, their mantra, the extremes on both sides, the extremes on both sides, all day, every day, year after year. But every once in a while, a centrist makes the critical mistake of naming some substantive thing on which they claim neither side agrees to their touchstone of centrism. So David Brooks, my bête noire, the guy I've written about for 18 years now, did this all the time during the Obama administration, all the time. And you can read all about it in an NY Magazine article from November of 2016. You'll remember what happened in November of 2016, right? Some bad shit happened. And the article is entitled David Brooks and the Intellectual Collapse of the Center. Remember, we're talking about centrism now. So I'm going to quote from the article and make a point. Quote, the premise of Brooks's column, the column that he wrote that week, is that there needs to be, quote, space between the alt-right and alt-left, between Trumpian authoritarianism and Sanders socialism. Got it? You with me so far?
Yep.
This is a true time capsule from the before time, the very nearly before time. This, the article continues, is a terrible way to conceptualize the political map. First, it distorts the idea of the two sides, equating a small d Democrat like Sanders, who merely proposes more regulation, taxes, and spending, with Trump, who, as Brooks concedes, is authoritarian. And second, it distorts their power. Sanders remains a left-wing outlier among his party, while Trump is the dominant force within his. But that, of course, I'm saying a drift class aside now, is something that centrists cannot concede. They absolutely cannot concede that the two sides are not equally awful. Back to the article. But even if you accept this very strange notion of political alignment in Trump's Washington, it raises a question Brooks is not prepared to answer. If his objection on the left lies with the, quote, Sanders socialism, then isn't there an appealing centrist lying to the right of that? A moderate who favors market-oriented solutions that bring together business and labor, who welcomes empiricism and is willing to compromise, a politician who has, led the Democratic Party for the last 8 years and, in fact, is still sitting president of the United States right now. And this is another aside. This is what centrists do. If you listen to any of your Never Trump allies, the Obama administration might as well never have happened because it blows apart every one of their stupid fucking theories of politics. Back I go to the article. One might think so, but Brooks spent the last 8 years defining the center as something Obama was not. It didn't matter that Obama supported a health care plan first devised by Mitt Romney or a cap-and-trade plan endorsed by John McCain. Brooks nestled himself into the territory between Obama and the angry no-compromise Republicans who were shutting down the government and boycotting all negotiations with the president. If Obama endorsed the policies Brooks preferred, he would simply pretend that Obama had not proposed them. Indeed, one of the most common genres of David Brooks' columns was a sad lament that neither party would endorse policies that, in fact, Obama had explicitly and publicly called for, unquote. That's a fucking centrist who has to have two sides being equally bad. And when they're not, they just lie about it. They just make shit up to allow themselves to continue to pretend to be centrist, to continue to insist that the left is just as bad as the right. And they have a lot of money, and they have a lot of power, and they have a lot of influence because that's the fucking church at which the Beltway media worships. And it's also called the No Labels movement, which was created and sustained by the lie that both parties are somehow equally extreme, and some third way between them is the only way forward. This is also the proposition of people like Adam Kinzinger, got to be a third way. Matthew Dowd, got to be a third way. All of these people lie to themselves and lie to people who send them money because they absolutely cannot afford to be identified as Democrats, of course, because Democrats are filthy communists, but they can't afford to pretend that Trump doesn't exist. So they make up a fictional left to balance out the actual right and pretend there's a middle ground in between. But since this is manifestly untrue, and since No Labels has left itself no way to backdoor out of their foundational lie, then they must do exactly what Trump does, which is compound the first lie with a second lie. In this case, the lie is that Joe Biden is just as fringe and just as extreme as Donald Trump. And this is where all your Never Trump allies start to freak out about how could elites possibly believe this nonsense? You know why? Because inside that bubble, it makes perfect sense to them. because they have always been consistent. Their God that they worship has always decreed that all problems are created by the extremes on both sides. And since God cannot be wrong, Joe Biden must be just as extreme as Donald Trump. And that is why a lot of the Never Trumpers I listened to, the entire Mona Charen podcast this week, was her freaking out about how is it that Joe Manchin doesn't see the craziness in what he's doing? What the hell's wrong? Everyone at No Labels is an elite. Cornel West is an elite. How do they not see how dangerous this is? And I want to shake them by the lapel and say, yeah, this is what liberals were saying 20 fucking years to you people. How do you not see how dangerous it is to keep feeding the lunatic base? Well, the reason all the elites are doing this crazy shit is because you have been telling them ever since the Bush administration collapsed that both sides are equally bad. Both sides are equally wrong because you couldn't admit you were wrong. You couldn't admit liberals were right. So you invented this entire giant big lie. That's always the extremes on both sides. Always, always, always. You, once again, built the very monster that is now coming to destroy you. And you're sitting there scratching your ass, wondering how this could ever come to be. Because these people, all they're doing is quoting you back to you. Now, that's centrist, right?
Mm-hmm.
Independents are slightly different. Some of them are compulsively cowardly centrists, like the No Labels grifters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some just want to avoid arguments. They don't want to fight. I don't want to fight. So I'm just going to say I'm an independent and I don't want to argue politics with you. Let's just talk about sports, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people, most Americans, I would argue, are never happy with anything on the menu. I used to go to lunch with a guy like this.
Yep.
The French fries were never crispy enough, and the toast was never right, and the butter was never soft enough. He just sent shit back all the time because he was never perfectly happy with everything on the menu. So he had to get it just the way he wanted it. And with only 2 parties to choose from, well, that's just terrible. I should be allowed 40 choices, which in a parliamentary system you would, but that ain't our system. Now, some like it because it makes them sound cool. No, Marge, I'm an independent. You couldn't understand me. I'm a rebel. I'm an independent. I'm bold and I'm powerful and I'm noble. And I'm an independent like every other asshole who claims they're an independent, except you're not. And some are really fanatical about a single issue that neither party is addressing to their satisfaction. I understand that. But even with these voters who may very well truly be independent, the category of independent is wildly misleading because, well, especially like the case of the grifters in the Forward Party, which I used to beat up on, and I will go back to beating up on at a later date, who claim they can create an entire political movement, an entire political party out of people who claim to be independent.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Really? Okay. So let's take the right-wing secessionists who bother me on Twitter because the wrong side won on the Civil War and Lincoln was a tyrant and a murderer and secession should be the right of every state in America and liberals are a bunch of fascists, okay? They don't believe the Republican Party is right enough for them, is crazy enough for them. So you know what they call themselves? They call themselves independent. On the other hand, take all the left-wing healthcare activists who are Medicare or all or nothing. Medicare or all or bust. I don't want to hear anything in between. Everything in between is bullshit. Accommodation is nonsense. I don't want to hear about single payer. It's Medicare for all or nothing. They also identify as independents. So both of these groups identify as independent, but they are ideologically diametrically opposed to each other. They could never coexist in the same party. So the people at the Forward Party, the grifters at the Forward Party, just think no one notices. Like, well, independents just mean they're independent. They think independently, I'm sure. And that's when they go all fucking centrist on you. I'm sure we can find some accommodation, some middle ground, some place of compromise among all these independents because, hey, they're all independent. And as I wrote, Jesus, was it 2009? A long post called The Independent Granfalloon. That wonderful Kurt Vonnegut phrase that means a proud and meaningless association of human beings. The word independent means nothing at all. The word centrist means a bunch of stuff that I would never be proud of if I called myself a centrist. You know what I am? I'm partisan. I'm partisan as hell. I want Democrats to win. And I want people who want to be allied with the Democratic Party, who who will be 97% of the vote voting for Donald Trump, I want them to quit apologizing for being on my side. I want them to quit saying, well, I guess I'm going to have to vote for those filthy pervert Democrats who I hate completely and who are awful and stupid and don't listen to me, but I guess I have no choice. You know, you're a charmer, and I really appreciate that cooing, that wooing talk that you do, but honestly, I really just would appreciate it if you would stop apologizing for having to hold your nose and vote for my party because we're slightly the lesser of two evils. Because we're not. We're actually pretty decent people who believe pretty decent things. And that's the end of my little rant.
Yeah. Some of this is testosterone too.
It is.
I'm going to be a contrarian and not support anybody. And they either don't vote or they vote consistently one way.
Right.
You know, because of their taxes or because of maybe they do want health care for all and they know there's only one way they're going to get to anything even approaching that.
Well,
or they don't want to destroy the planet.
Right. And right? I understand. I understand that there are people who are genuinely Marxist in their beliefs and believe that the way forward is to destroy the current system. And the way that you can most effectively destroy the current system is elect Donald Trump. Because anyone who wants to vote for Joe Biden is an accommodationist, weak-ass, lily-livered liberal. And the only way forward is to destroy the system, and then the proletariat will rise up and blah, 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 something, something, utopia. So they're genuinely independent.
Right.
They have no hope of succeeding, and all they will end up doing is hurting millions and millions and millions of people to satisfy their tiny, weird little ideology. But
and we've talked about that before, the incredible privilege that it takes to say that you're willing to destroy the system, so to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, that you're never going to miss a meal or turn homeless or lose anything if you have that position. Or the people that we know that have that position certainly are in that.
Well, I would also
economic
mention that
stratosphere. Yeah.
One of the reasons the Greenwald horde used to come down hard on me was I found that video of Glenn Greenwald in like 2010, 2009, lecturing at, I forget, University of Michigan or someplace in Wisconsin, telling people, basically to teach Democrats a lesson. Maybe you should stay home and let Republicans win a few elections. That'll show them. And this, again, spoken from a position of reeking of privilege, of like, and none of the tidal wave of fascism and brutality and lives lost and corruption done and institutions smashed is going to affect Glenn Greenwald personally. I'll be hiding out in a mountain in Brazil. I'll be fine. But once the rubble is cleared and the millions are dead, I can come back in and establish my, my socialist utopia.
Told you so movement.
Yeah,
yes. Right.
And everyone else always pays the price for these people. They always skate away. And Joe Manchin, other end of the spectrum.
Oh yeah.
Man, 18 million in the bank, 8 houses, 2 yachts, nothing. He can fiddle around and pretend to be a third party candidate. He can be the object of your never Trumpers' desires, because that's what Democrats should be. They should be more like Joe Manchin. If they were more like Joe Manchin, I'd be more comfortable in the Democratic Party. Well, yeah, he can afford to do that because there's no thing that the Trump administration part 2 would ever do to him that would harm him materially in any way. So why not just fuck around?
And why not fuck around at the exact moment when the movement to prevent members of Congress from owning individual stocks is actually gaining headway. Right. And people are paying attention to that.
We can't have that.
I got to leave. I got to go now and be third party.
Yeah.
Now, look, I am tired of Donald Trump. But the fact is, he's a candidate at the moment. At the moment of this recording, he's a candidate. And so I found it real interesting that a parent voter in Iowa asked him a specific question about a specific issue.
Yeah.
And here's the tape of that voter. I'm not so much interested in Donald Trump, but the voter actually asked a question. So here it is. Now let's compare that answer with candidate Donald Trump in 2016. And here he is.
Huh. That's weird.
He He's just such an asshole.
It's almost like he has one preloaded answer for anything he doesn't want to talk about and know anything about, which is, it's easy to fix and I'll fix it. I have a plan to fix it and I'll fix it. It'll be simple and cheap and
I'll
fast.
fix it. And the fact is that this, I've been reading up on this CO2 pipeline thing, which is a clean coal fantasy.
Right.
And Terry Branstad, who is former Iowa governor, is real into this. And his son, Terry Branstad's son, is a 2024 Donald Trump advisor in Iowa. So, yeah. Oh, we're just going to fix this. It's going to be easy. It's preloaded. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, it'll cheap, easy. It'll solve all our
problems. I'm going to give you everything you want and make all of your dreams come true.
And I'm going to punish all your enemies. I will be your retribution. Yeah. And you know who that sells to?
Okay, you promised. I made you promise.
I broke my promise,
Speaking of broken promises, Driftglass, I asked you earlier today if you would agree to a plea deal involving Donald Trump leaving the country and agreeing never to return or be in the U.S. media ever again.
And my answer was, of course not. What are you, crazy? That's insane. I know Herr Hitler has broken every treaty he's ever signed, but I trust him to honor this one. Fuck no. He'd leave the country. He'd go right back to being Donald Trump. He'd be the Orange God King in exile, like Lenin or Ayatollah Khomeini, and his followers would eventually smuggle him back into the country to rule over us as we deserve to be ruled over. No, he's a liar and a thief and a corrupt traitorous asshole.
You can't trust him to do anything. No deal.
The proper retirement place for him is a Supermax prison in Colorado.
Donald Trump belongs in jail, belongs in jail, belongs in jail. Okay. What's next on our notes here? If any other defendant in the universe had said this, Driftglass, quote, if you fuck around with us, if you do bad things to us, we will do things to you that have never been done before.
Yeah. Who said that? And about what?
Today. That came out on Truth Social today from Donald Trump.
Oh, I thought it was Keith Olbermann talking about a dog in a shelter, but no, apparently not. It was Donald Trump threatening judges and threatening U.S.
prosecutors
attorneys.
And everybody, and again, belongs in jail. Any other defendant in a court case that came out and said this on social media, you'd hold up your phone to the judge and say, you see this, judge? Oh, he's got to be put in detention now.
Yeah, he's got to be put in timeout, grown-up timeout now. Yeah,
so that he doesn't hurt anybody.
Right. No, this is just straight up mob stuff. And that's why I won't make the little noise now, but that's why his people love him, because he's a mobster and they work for him.
He'll fight for me. Yeah, because this is happening to you. But it is happening to some people, Driftglass.
It is. Very unfair. It's very unfair, the bad things that are happening. It's unfair and not fair.
That a bunch of old white people who are Trumpers are actually being held accountable for their activities.
Yeah,
Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel criminally charged 16 people who falsely claimed to be the state's 2020 presidential electors for Trump. All 16 people were charged with 8 felonies each for their role in the alleged false elector scheme following the 2020 U.S. presidential election. The mayor of Wyoming, Michigan, is among those charged, along with a woman named Michonne Maddock, who is the co-chair of the Michigan Republican Party and the wife of a Michigan state representative. And she has been interviewed several times on right-wing media this week after being indicted. She decided to mention that she still has documents on her Facebook page. And she said, secret meeting. There was no secret meeting. These were Trump electors, duly elected Trump electors who met. And it's all very public. It was on Facebook. I haven't taken anything down from that day. We met and we turned in paperwork. It was meant to be put alongside with the Democrat electors. Now, then she did an interview later in the day where she said, these papers were put in front of us and we signed them.
We did. We don't read them. We just signed them.
So
put them in front of
something's kind of, her story is gradually changing as hours go on. But I compare this to, and I wasn't old enough to remember all of this. I do remember watching John Dean on TV during Watergate summer. But you have recollected several times seeing, in retrospect, Republicans crying or near tears over the Nixon tapes.
Well,
and I can't believe this is the president of my party.
This is my president. My president said, instead of throwing them out, he talked about bribery and extortion, how much money he could raise. And I can't believe my president did that. And this is a loyalist. These people were loyal. And let's face it, people like the two last dogs to die, the two people who were on that hill till the very, very end were Pat Buchanan and a guy named George H.W. Bush.
Yep.
Because loyalty, man, there's no currency greater, there's no value greater than loyalty, even if the person at the top of the heap is an absolute criminal and everyone knows it. And that has never changed. They're just, they just don't care now, you know?
Well, I think it's worse than that. I think it's worse than not caring. I think they feel that their loyalty and their selfhood is so tied up with Donald Trump's personality.
Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah.
That they have to do crimes for him.
Yeah, dear leader. The dear leader.
Yeah, it's dear leader stuff.
Yeah. And I'm sure Michonne Maddox believes that Donald Trump will pardon her.
Oh, there's been a lot of talk about that on social media. That Michonne definitely thinks that she's part of Donald Trump's team because she's been to Mar-a-Lago and she's been to the White House.
Right.
And she has thanked Donald Trump personally for giving her a seat at the table.
And he's going to pardon her and buy her a Blizzard. It's going to be great. And that's the bright future that they see for themselves. And again, when you look into their dead, dull cow eyes, you realize there's nobody home there anymore. There's no reasoning with them. So it's that trench warfare we talk about. They're not
and there's
budge.
This Republican official in Georgia now saying, well, you're violating my First Amendment rights by indicting me.
Yeah.
I have a First Amendment right to be a fake elector.
Right. Jesus Christ. Yeah. Now, you and I were upfront about our lack of legal knowledge.
Yes,
these people just make shit up. No, it's in the Constitution. I absolutely have a right to just wipe my ass on the floor of Nancy Pelosi's office and be a fake elector and freedom. And you wonder where they got these ideas from. That's right.
Part of it is their white skin.
Oh, yeah. No, their white skin has saved them from being mowed down with machine guns and stacked up like cordwood on January 6th. But this all comes from, decades and decades and decades of Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly pumping the poison. And again, which I've said before, all they ever had to do was change the fucking channel. That's all they ever had to do. All they ever had, either they are responsible for their actions, in which case you go to jail now. You go to jail, you go to Meemaw MAGA jail. Don't care how old you are. Take it up with Denny Hastert. Old people go to jail all the time. That's why they have senior accommodations in prisons. I'm sure you'll get a very nice
Steve
cell.
Bannon's big argument yesterday was, these people are 72 and 73 years old, and Joe Biden wants to put them in prison.
No, I want to put him in prison. Joe Biden just wants to let the system work.
Joe Biden has nothing to do with this.
No. Well, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden's laptop wants to put Meemaw, MAGA Meemaw in prison. Let's stop Hunter Biden's laptop. Now, that's one group of people, the true believers, the dead-eyed true believers who think that everything's going to work out because the dear leader says so. There's another group of people who I'm not sure are true believers, but are sure willing to act like one. And one who crawled to the top of the heap this week was former NBC employee at whom was thrown a giant bag of $30 million to come over and be on their TV network for about a minute. Megyn Kelly, who broke out the dental dam, got down on her knees and resumed servicing Donald Trump this week. He comes into a room, you just can't take your eyes off of him. And why? Because she thinks he'll win the nomination. And he might win the general election, and it's time to get back on the good side of the bad man. Because that bad man could destroy you. So if you want to stay in the spotlight, which Megyn Kelly clearly dies without a spotlight. She can't function without an audience of adoring people trying to look up her skirt and pretend that she's smart.
$26 million did not buy her out of the spotlight. She's going to continue.
No, money's not the issue. The issue is I'm an attention-starved whore, and I need constant validation about how wonderful I am. And if Donald Trump becomes the nominee, I could be eclipsed. I could be cut out. I could not even get a job on Newsmax, which is, I believe, currently where she's at. So she has decided time to get down on those knees and service the commander-in-chief, the future commander-in-chief, because she thinks he'll win the nomination. He probably will, and might win the general election. And you know what? They all do.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever wonder why these people are lining up, like Kevin McCarthy is just smearing himself in feces and rolling on anthills, it's because they're all terrified that this guy's coming back, that he's coming back from the dead, and he's got, now he's out for revenge. Now he's out to demolish them. This is why Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, who fucking well knows how bad Trump is, who Trump pressured to overturn the election, call a special session, said he was ashamed that he'd ever endorsed Kemp and called him hapless. Brian Kemp still says that he will work to get Trump elected if Trump wins the nomination, because he knows the future of the Republican Party is orange, racist, and crazy. Mm-hmm. And he's got to get right with Jesus, because Judgment Day is a-coming. And so all of those people who were like, oh, well, I'm not sure. So enough of talk of off-ramps and alternatives and good Republicans and green shoots. They're all awful. All Republicans are horrible garbage people, and they always will be. They're either true believers or they're craven grifters who are terrified that the orange guy's coming back and will destroy them or take their spotlight away from them. These people all have money. They're all set for life. They don't need any of this stuff. They don't need to hold up their tip jar. They don't need to tell you that we have a Patreon account you can send us money to, or a check. You can send it to our post office box. They're set for life, but they want more. They want more spotlight. They want more power. They want more money. They want more influence. And they're willing to embrace a monster to do it and pretend to be true believers, because if they stop pretending they're true believers, the mob will come for them.
I know. That's a big part of it. That's a big part of it. Mm-hmm. Marjorie Taylor Greene has opened her mouth a couple times this week, and every time she opened her mouth this week, she recorded another Joe Biden ad.
Yeah. Every time.
And kudos to the Biden team for turning her words into an actual ad.
I know. I know.
How deep into the MAGA mindset do you have to be to think that talking about finishing the work that FDR did is a bad thing?
Is the end of civilization? Well, especially after you've stood up on your hind legs and cheered for preserving Social Security and Medicare.
Right. At the State of the Union. Yeah. Let's stand up for seniors.
So to every Marjorie Taylor Greene presser, I say, release the Biden cut.
Release the Biden cut. And she did it again yesterday, or she said that, regardless of who you are, you should, if you break the law, you should be held accountable.
Yeah, prosecuted. You should be prosecuted.
Oh, good. Yeah. Good to know that.
Again,
Marge.
Won't matter in the slightest to her, and won't make the noise again, people. But it's nice of her to, help load up Joe Biden's ad cannon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The ad cannon is ready to go. Drift Class, let's do a news roundup.
All right.
Took about 2 minutes for Jamie Raskin to tear apart the Republican Hunter Biden cover-up bullshit. Mm-hmm. And it won't matter in the slightest to the other side, because they're watching Right Side Broadcasting Network.
Right. But it was he did a great job, and you should listen to it. I don't believe we have the clip, but we should go listen to Jamie Raskin spend 2.5 minutes explaining that Hunter Biden was a drug addict, made some terrible decisions, has paid for his crimes, and was charged by Trump attorney generals, was heard by Trump judges. All of this, except 90% of this was done during the Trump administration. Bill Barr had no problem with this. I know, again, it won't convince any of, the people who think Marjorie Taylor Greene is the future of the party, because they are, reprogrammable meatbags. But it is a thing, because Bill Barr's now, he's a cuck now? Is he a cuck? Is he a cuck and a squish and a liberal Democrat? I don't know. I lose track. Kevin McCarthy, who is, again, rolling on that anthill covered with dung, promised Trump a vote on expunging impeachment. This is to make Trump happy for 5 minutes until he loses his mind over something else, and make his supporters in the party happy so they won't come into his office and drag him out by his heels and throw him in the Potomac.
And of course, Kevin McCarthy also said this week, quote, "I hear from people who say, you know what? I never voted for President Trump, but I am going to vote for him now based upon how he is being treated, because if they can treat him that way, they can do that to any American," unquote. Follow the money, people.
Yeah. Well, true.
Right?
If any other Americans steal classified documents and lie about it, yeah, they can be prosecuted and have been too.
They have been right away. No, but I think this Kevin McCarthy behavior is easily explained. Win red.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
I've said it to death, and I'm going to keep on saying it. He is a willing hostage with a huge case of Stockholm syndrome.
Win red is your no labels, honey. You know,
it is. Win red is my no labels.
Been on it since day one. And you know what? People starting to catch up. A judge has denied Trump's request for a new trial in the E. Jean Carroll case. Trump had sought a new trial after a $5 million judgment against him. Judge said,
had also asked for a coupon on the judgment. He wanted a discount on the $5 million. And the judge actually described the crime that he was, that the jury found him culpable for, described it in detail, said, yep, that's rape. Sorry, you're going to have to pay her.
Right. Sorry, dude. No, not in Trump stakes either.
Yeah. Ron DeSantis' administration just approved new curriculum rules requiring schools to teach that slaves developed skills that could be applied for their personal benefit. I don't know what to say anymore. I'm out of ideas on that one. They also require in the curriculum to say that Black people used violence against white people.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. RFK Jr., and I'm kind of wondering, does RFK stand for rat fucking crank? But, you know, that's just me. I'm workshopping that one, but it seems like that might be appropriate. He testified under oath that he's, quote, never been anti-vax, unquote, or ever, quote, told the public to avoid vaccination. And yet, in a 2021 podcast, he encouraged the public to approach parents with babies and tell them, better not get vaccinated in order to save that child. So, you know, he is a WMD, a broke brain WMD loaded up by Steve Bannon to cause chaos in the Democratic Party. And that's all he is.
And now he's a perjurer.
Right. And his family has disowned him. So, you know, he's the perfect Republican. He really is. He fits right in over there. They can't get JFK Jr. to come out from hiding. So they'll take the next best thing, which is a lunatic RFK Jr.
Trump has been notified that he's a target in the January 6th criminal investigation by special counsel Jack Smith. Trump confirmed the development himself in a post on his personal social media platform, writing, deranged. I'm not going to read that. No. Sunday night. He did emphasize it was a Sunday night, though. And he only has very short 4 days to report to the grand jury, which almost always means an arrest and indictment.
I'm going to take the first thing the judge is going to do is take his caps lock keys away from him, and that should cut this way down. And finally, the Georgia Supreme Court dismissed Trump's petition to block the state's investigation into his efforts to overturn the 2020 election and throw out evidence gathered by a special purpose grand jury in the case. All 9 justices said Trump's lawyers had failed to present, quote, extraordinary circumstances, unquote, that warranted shutting down the investigation. So no shutdown for you.
Yeah, we're not going to fire the prosecutor from the Supreme Court bench. Go figure. Hey, each week we post to our Facebook page and website an Internet Kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's Internet Kitty is Coco. Coco is a beautiful kitty who was adopted in spite of the foster family saying no more kitties.
That never works.
They had 2 kitties and they said, well, you know, we don't want any more kitties, but we'll foster this one. And Coco said, I'm not a kitty, I'm a person.
This is my forever home now.
This is my forever home. Settled in for a forever home with her 2 cat mates and Bear, a 100-pound German Shepherd who apparently knows his place. I'm not going to say that 3 kitties wouldn't be fine. It'll be fine, okay? It'll be fine. So Coco lives there now. And, of course, Coco and her cat and dog family all eat freshly poured pet food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve pet store perfection or dollar store dreck, your pets will sit on the kitchen floor and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured.
Freshly poured, oh my Lord, it's freshly poured.
And you can visit Coco at our Facebook page or website. It's such a pretty kitty. And you can send your Internet Kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. Be aware that if you write to us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go, postal unions. Letter on the air unless you say otherwise. I want to say that I had a conversation with middle child. She's home for the summer. And I had a conversation with her yesterday. And she said, so you've got what, like around 10,000 listeners a week? And I said, no, we have about 4,000 listeners a week. And she said, with all the mail that comes in and all of the emails that you have to answer and all of the kitties that get sent in, and you're constantly writing back to people and talking to them and involved every day with a whole bunch of stuff, and you've only got 4,000 listeners? And then she said, oh, they're very loyal.
Yes.
I went, yep.
Yeah. They stick around.
We have a community here that's very involved, very loving, very supportive, and we love them right back. So,
which is weird.
It was interesting that she had observed the level of activity that comes from this house toward our listeners and said, so you've got 10,000 listeners, right?
No, maybe in another 10 years. Who knows?
Who knows?
But it's weird to me when I think about that, because who's the most antisocial person I know? Oh, it's me.
You.
I don't want to. I don't like. I'm good at it. I have skills, but interacting with people who aren't my wife and my family and my close friends exhausts me. It's just exhausting.
Well, but Driftglass, you and I have the same skill set in terms of we would much rather be on the stage talking about something we're passionate about to a group of 4,000 people, which we do every week, than be mingling in a cocktail party with 40 people. Small talk is not the skill. That's the problem.
Well, my point being, getting up on the stage and talking to 4,000 people who then all go home and you never see them again. That's one thing. Doing it every week for the same people, largely the same people, although we do accumulate people over time.
Yeah,
is a community, as you said.
It is.
The people who write to us, and I'm a terrible correspondent, but I get copies of everything, and it's just to be at the center of a community is such a weird experience for me, because I am the guy who you put in a room with a laptop and I solve problems. You put some pizza under the door. I'll make phone calls. I'll figure out the tech problems. I'll figure out the leadership problems. And then, like the Lone Ranger, I am gone. And the idea of sticking around and being part of a community is nothing I ever thought I'd be part of. So,
but what's the Bible verse that I constantly quote to you, Driftglass?
I know.
The Lord setteth the solitary in families.
Yes, I know. And see, there you go again, rubbing quoting the Bible.
Regardless of your quirks, regardless of your neuroatypical behavior and wiring,
somehow
the Lord setteth the solitary in families.
And that goes out to all of our atheist fans who like listening to us talk. Oh, you know what?
We love you guys, all of you.
We have to bring Bible Bitch back.
We get so many letters of, hi, I'm one of your atheist fans. Hi.
We need to bring Bible Bitch back badly.
Oh, at some point. Absolutely. All right. Don't forget our gourmet coffee guideline. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not charity. For now, this is our full-time job.
Yep.
I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm thinking of applying for work. We're just trying to figure out how to do the insurance thing.
Right.
Neither one of us has a job with health insurance, and it's the expenses of healthcare just getting out of hand. So
and DGBG Productions is too cheap to buy healthcare for its 2 employees. So
DGBG Productions is buying healthcare for its 2 employees.
That's the point.
And can barely afford it is the problem. Yeah. So we're working on it. Please share our show on social media. And if you love this podcast, please get someone else to listen to. And thank you for doing that. Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Blue Gal, the Internet Kitties do wonder why we're not talking more about Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who is the best governor in the country.
Best governor.
I got to say, I like being able to move back and forth between, a co-owner of this company, DGPG Productions, and an employee who bitches about the fact that he's not fairly treated by the management of this outfit. It appeals to my, my many faceted personality. Let's put it that way.
I always refer to you as the talent in the trailer, Driftglass. Yeah. I'm the administrative person.
I have other skills. I have a few.
Well, yes, you do.
And that is the episode of DGBG After Dark that you will not hear unless you pay the $50 premium every week.
No.
There's no such thing. There's this. There's no fair remembering stuff. There's Science Fiction University, and then we might do some other stuff on the side. But that's pretty much.
And Drift Glass makes me a cup of tea after we record every week.
I do.
Without fail.
And then I go back to writing posts. I go back to writing posts that are read by literally dozens of people, Blue Gal.
I love you, Drift Glass.
I love you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's think about living.
Think about living.
Let's think about loving.
Think about loving.
Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the popping and the loving, lovey-dovey.
Lovey-dovey-dovey.
Let's forget about the wine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with the switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
A Professional Left podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2023 DGBG Productions.